Good morning, everyone. This is Bill Coleman here on behalf of the Benton Institute for Broadband and Society, and welcome to our meeting this morning. We do usually try to start within a minute or two of our scheduled time. We have very full agendas throughout the program, and so we like to start on time and get out on time. And so we'll talk more about the program and the process, but we've got a couple people to welcome you today. And we're going to start with Revati Prasad of the Benton Institute. Revati?
Sorry. Hi, everyone. It's so lovely to be here. I'm Revati Prasad, the Vice President of Programs at the Benton Institute for Broadband and Society. Benton is a 42-year-old nonprofit focused on broadband policy, working to make sure everyone in the United States can use and benefit from high-quality, affordable broadband, and that's why we're here today. We strengthen local, state, national leadership by providing timely information, rigorous evidence, and practical guidance and advocacy needed to articulate and implement a broadband for all agenda. I think I'm gonna pause here for just a second. Is Todd Main on the call?
He is.
Great. Todd, could I ask you to introduce yourself briefly, and then I can give a little bit of background about the program?
Todd Main, I'm with the Illinois Soybean Association, and we're delighted to welcome you all here today. It's a very exciting adventure that you've embarked upon. I think you're going to find it to be very thoughtful. You're going to learn a lot, and you're going to make a big difference in our state and in your communities and counties. Because at the end of this process, you're going to have the tools and the skills to put together a broadband plan that is worthy of capturing the federal money to build it out. And that's tremendously exciting for a bunch of different reasons. So thank you in advance for your time and your commitment to volunteer. And I can assure you that the Illinois Soybean Association is going to be there to support you going forward. Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Todd. The Soybean Association is a great supporter of this program. In fact, the primary funder of the program this year. So we really thank Todd for that. Revati?
Yeah, Reed, do you mind?
I'm sorry.
Next slide. Revati, yeah. So as Todd just introduced himself and Bill just mentioned, the Illinois Soybean Association is the primary funder for this program. Listed on the slide, you will see the logos of all of our project partner. Our partnership with Illinois Soy goes back for over a year. Their outreach to a network of 43,000 Illinois soy farmers, their relationship with the Illinois Farm Bureau, and their introduction to the research team at Illinois State University, who you get to know over the next few weeks, have been invaluable to the success of this program. County teams will also, as I just mentioned, get a chance to work with the University of Illinois Extension team and the incredible Nancy. So I should mention here, this is my first time being directly involved in the program. I've been with Benton for over a year, and I've always watched the community engagement program that Bill runs from afar, but now I get to get my hands dirty and I'm really excited. So I haven't had the chance to meet Nancy, but I've heard such wonderful things about her, and I think you will really enjoy working with her. She'll help all of you with your community broadband use surveys and survey analysis. The Illinois Extension team will also provide our communication platform and handle any post-meeting emails with slides and all the other resources and goodies that we provide our teams. The Illinois Broadband Lab will help communities by providing mapping of where robust broadband is and isn't, so communities and their chosen ISPs can focus on where to build reliable high-speed networks. Our research team from the Illinois State University will provide two tools. The first helps communities quantify the value of high-performance broadband based on its impact on the farming economy. And the second maps vertical assets that might be useful while deploying broadband networks. And finally, Benton's programming would lead you all down a path to nowhere if it weren't for the involvement of the Illinois Office of Broadband. They not only value, but in fact reward community involvement in broadband planning. So your plan will allow you and your ISP to gear up to apply for state funds, over $1 billion, as Todd mentioned, are being made available to build networks in parts of Illinois currently unserved by broadband. Next slide. So what are our goals here? Here we outline what broadband breakthrough teams will accomplish and how this aligns with the goals of our sponsoring partners. We're here to engage with and educate your teams and deliver a variety of tools and data that will help tell your current broadband story and map a plan for the future. You'll create a community infrastructure plan that integrates your new knowledge so that you can apply for and receive your fair share of federal and state infrastructure funds. Next slide, Reed. So this is our second time through. Bill's been doing this for a long time. This program's been called other things, but this is our second time running the Broadband Breakthrough Program, which is a rural focus with farming communities. In mid-December, we released a Broadband Breakthrough Infrastructure Planning Tools for Rural Farming Communities report. And this report followed the journey of 5 rural counties in Illinois, Edgar, Hancock, McLean, Ogle, and Schuyler, that enrolled in the pilot Broadband Breakthrough Community Engagement and Broadband Planning Program. They use the resources and open source tools that the program provides that you are all going to become familiar with. And if you want to get a jump on what you're about to experience, please feel free to access this report on our website, benton.org. And Nancy can also send out a link in the email following our session today. I think that's all my welcomes, Bill.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it. And Benton is a national leader in broadband public policy, and it's really my honor to work with Benton. And we've got some of our other team members on the call this morning, and next week there'll be more. But Reed Sharkey is a member of the Benton team, and he is kind of my assistant as we go through this program. And he's going to take a lot of the responsibility for logistics and activities along with Nancy, as we mentioned. And Reed, why don't you just pop on and say hello?
Yeah, hi everyone. I know we have a lot to get through, so I'll keep it short, but really excited to work with you all. I've gone through this program in a similar form in Tennessee once before, and I'm excited to do more of it and get to know you all. So thanks, Bill.
Great. Thank you. And then Nancy is our very strong team member from Illinois Extension. And as we roll this out in other states, Nancy is the bar against which we measure all other extension staff, and no one has really come close to matching her performance and commitment. Nancy, do you want to say hi?
Hi, everyone. It's so nice to be here, and thanks for the kind words, Revati and Bill. We're really excited to be embarking on this. It's, I think, the 6th round of planning assistance we've done with Benton Institute, and we're very excited to have the ongoing partnerships with all those involved in this cooperative assistance. I was born and raised in Western Illinois, and now I serve as a state specialist in community and economic development with the University of Illinois Extension. And I'm here also with Mike Delaney, who's on the call, and he's also in community and economic development with Extension. And we're just very glad to be providing the team support across the state, and helping with any of the networking, and as well as the CED support, including the surveying. And we also have fellows who are working with the Illinois Office of Broadband and the Extension. They're in a 4th year of that. And so some of those fellows will be coming on to the calls and hopefully joining in. They're doing some policy work and some agency work, some data work that always support the overall efforts. And we're just very grateful for that program as part of the capacity with which Extension can also be of assistance. So thanks again. And of course, right back at you, Bill. We love Bill. We're so happy he's giving more attention to Illinois, and Harold shepherding really our counties through this process is really important to us. And so we're just very grateful to you, Bill, and of course to all the partners. want to give Mike Delaney a chance to say hi, and then I'll go ahead and mute, and real happy for us to get rolling. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody, and thanks, Nancy. Appreciate that. I'll simply echo everything that Nancy said. We enjoy working with the partners, and most of all, we enjoy supporting our constituents across the counties. I personally was pretty deeply involved with Ogle County's efforts in the recent cohorts, and we've worked with other counties pretty closely. So I've had some on-the-ground experience really working one-on-one with members of the county teams, and I'll be happy to provide whatever assistance I can to our teams this time around. So thanks for being here, and we're off on an interesting experience.
Good, good. Thank you, Mike. And I'd like John Kostelnick to say hello. He's with Illinois State University, and they bring a very interesting set of tools focused on rural communities, agricultural production, tower locations, and so on. Good morning, John.
Yeah, good morning, Bill. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for having us. As Bill mentioned at ISU, we do mapping. You'll get to use a lot of maps in your planning tools, and we will help provide some of those maps. So it's been our pleasure to partner up with Illinois Soybean Association and Benton and everybody on the planning team here for another round of broadband breakthrough. So good morning, all, and we very much look forward to working with everyone. Thank you, Bill.
You're welcome. And finally, Grace Tepper is with us from the Benton Institute. And she is an excellent writer. And one of the things we promote is that you should subscribe to the Benton Institute daily newsletter. And Grace is a writer with that team, but also likes to get with our communities and participate there. Grace, do you want to say hello?
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Bill, for the introduction. Also keep it short and just say that I'm really excited to be working with you all. This is my third time doing Broadband Breakthrough with the Benton Institute, and I love it, and I'm really looking forward to it.
Great. Thanks, Grace. We're going to now take a minute to have each of the community teams introduce themselves. So we're going to ask the team leader to just over 1 or 2 minutes give us a brief description of your county and your broadband efforts to date, and kind of your primary goal for this program. So let's just go right to, let's start with, we'll go alphabetical. We got a lot of C's. Clinton County. So if you want to unmute and introduce yourselves, not team member names or anything, but just your community.
Okay, can everybody hear me?
Yes, hi, Cheryl.
Hi. We're obviously from Clinton County. I have several of our team members participating this morning, and some will participate this evening after work when they get the recorded link. We're about 45 minutes outside of downtown St. Louis, but we are very rural in parts of the county. We are blessed with having Illinois' largest man-made lake, Carlisle Lake, which also lends itself to having some connection issues around some of those remote areas. So we are hoping to make sure we can get connectivity for all of our residents in an affordable and quality manner, and we're anxious to get started.
Okay, well, good. Thank you, Cheryl. And I see Bev's having a little trouble unmuting. That could be, down in the bottom left corner of your screen, there should be a mute button there under the slides. That's where it is on my computer. Or it might be at the top bar where we see the little megaphone with the sound waves. So we'll, and Bev, I'm not sure which county you're with. So forgive me, names is one of my weaknesses, and we have 50 or 60 new people to meet over the next 16 weeks. So let's go to Crawford County.
Hey, Bill, this
Yes.
is Vicki Chalifo. And when you see Bev, it's really Sarah from
Okay.
Cumberland County. Just to let you know, we'll get it unmuted and then we'll carry on. Okay.
Okay, sounds good. Well, let's go to Cumberland County. Cumberland, you might be muted. Or,
You're unmuted.
there we go.
You're unmuted.
So is it my turn, Cumberland County?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so my name is Sarah Ruhal, and Cumberland County is meeting together just really in its infancy. We've been moving in this direction for about 6 or 7 weeks. We are still pulling our full committee together. I don't know, I can't speak to why we've waited this long to become a part of the process, but we're really looking to spend some time defining where in our county is adequately served, and spend some time challenging these maps, saying that we're by and large served adequately, because we know it's not true. So we're working to create and reestablish some strong relationships that the county has with other stakeholders in the area, and then move to identify who the providers are, what exists there, and how can we link and leverage that into the future.
Okay, good. Thank you. Thank you. And then Logan County. Let's go to you next.
Sorry.
Thanks, Bill, for allowing us to be a part of this. I'm Kathy Brown. I work with the Greater Peoria Economic Development Council, and I'll be working to facilitate with Logan County, who has a wonderful opportunity. I think Logan County is a vast rural area, a very productive farm ground, and I'm especially excited about the interest in agriculture. As a 5th generation farm family, I see the importance of this all the time on my family farm, and so I'm really excited from that aspect. Logan County has a unique position in this opportunity, in that their interest is in really touching those rural areas. They've developed a very strategic plan for connecting, building that middle mile infrastructure. And what our initial conversations with ISPs have revealed is that they are keenly interested in, adding on to that a middle mile infrastructure that's being planned in Logan County. So we see this as a great opportunity for us to advance awareness of current planning efforts, and also to bring in that rural population in Logan County.
Great. Thank you, Kathy. And Kathy is kind of a veteran with our extension and Benton team. As her work through the Peoria area now is, this is, I think, the 3rd county we've been working with. So thank you for that. And then Macon County.
Hi, this is Tammy Wilcox in Macon County. We had started putting our team together last fall, and we're pretty proud of all the people that want to be involved with it. Of course, Macon County has a strong ag community and agricultural industry here in Macon County. So that's going to be our focus, is to get to the rest of the rural community in Macon County. We had previously started one broadband project in southern Macon County and have been real happy with the way that's going. So our team we tried to pull together a good team of everybody, like the farm bureaus here, the community foundation, our economic development, Decatur Chamber. We have local farmers, city of Decatur, and Macon County board members. I think I'm leaving somebody else. I know we have educational people that also want to be on our team, and we've also had other people already reach out to us this week. So thank you for putting this program on.
You're welcome. Thank you. It looks like a great group there. And as you think about future meetings, you might want to be maybe a little less classroom and a little more conference table look for you, so you can, because we do a lot of talking to each other as opposed to us just talking to you. I know that rooms are a challenge sometimes for that. So, and then Perry County.
hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm Jennifer Martin from Perry County. I am one of 3 of the board commissioners. We are a population of about 21,000. We are a big little farmer community. We love our farmers. We are looking forward to making this as much of a community project as possible. We will still be gathering committee members. I know that our ducks are not in a row at the current moment, but we are all headed to the water. Our goal is to provide every person in the county with the ability to have access with broadband and to be able to not be locked in with anything that they choose not to be locked in with. I want to thank you for having this. This is a beautiful thing, and thank you.
You're welcome. And let's go to Crawford County next.
Yeah, hi. My name is Kat Rice. I'm from Crawford County. I am a member of Leadership Crawford County, and we're partnering with Crawford County Development Association to get this project going. We are a rural community. I know a lot of our student population struggled with COVID, with not having internet. And then we also have 3 Fortune 500 companies who I know would benefit from having more remote opportunities for people to live in the county and be able to work. And we're just excited to be here.
Good. Thank you so much. And sorry I skipped over you earlier. I'm easily confused. You guys will find that out through this whole process. So, but thanks so much for those introductions. That was just perfect. For those of you who are really building your teams yet, and team building is an ongoing process throughout the program. I should warn you about that because people find out about it, they want to join. You find gaps in your knowledge, and you'll want to recruit folks. But I really encourage you to keep your eyes open for prospects to join your team. And then for those of you who are a little short on numbers, we'll figure out ways to help you recruit if that's a challenge. And some of the things with the maps and the surveys and so on are good access points or motivators to get people involved in the program because it's very task oriented. And a lot of people aren't really interested in sitting in on lots of meetings, but if you ask them to do something, they're ready to jump in. So that's kind of where we are in that, but it's good to get your team set up because it is we move quickly, and you don't want to be recruiting people a month from now and then have to come back and revisit discussions you'll be having over the next several weeks. Building that team consensus through this first month or 6 weeks is really important. Good. So we're going to now go to breakout rooms just for quick introductions on your own teams. One of the things that I've learned and I'm raised in the city of Minneapolis, but I've lived in rural communities previously. But the idea that everyone in a rural community knows each other. And I think that is kind of a misnomer, misunderstanding of rural counties, because these counties can be quite large. People run in different circles. Connections run across county lines between school districts and business communities and so on. So we're going to go into the breakout rooms and just ask people to go around the room and introduce themselves to the group, which community roles you have. I know many of you probably have multiple hats, multiple connections, whether that's with county boards or school boards or churches or athletic groups, whatever holds your community together there. And so let people know who you are. And then if you have a broadband story, one of the things we find out in this broadband planning effort is people's personal stories about the impact of either no broadband or the positive impact of good broadband really are interesting, and they help people understand how important broadband is to your community. So a quick around the room there, and I know some of you are in a room, some of you are meeting remotely, and so we'll go to those breakout rooms and and do that. And we like to practice this breakout room because some people have never really done that with the Zoom meetings. And so this will go on until about 9:20. So you have about 15 or 20 minutes or so for that. So Nancy will start the breakout rooms, and if you need help getting assigned to one, we can help you do that as well. So good morning and thanks for joining.
Thank you, Bill. So I'm opening the breakout rooms now. They're set for 20 minutes. And so let's just see, they are set so that folks can join manually. And it's always a little finicky for some folks, so I will keep my eye on this, watch as you all join, and help anyone out through those doors if they need help. I'm able to also assign, so let's just let folks join if they can. There should be a breakout room button at the bottom of your screen. And if you have trouble finding it and you would like some assistance, you can either unmute yourself and tell me your county, or write that in the chat, and I will try to prompt you to enter those, and you might see like a join button that pops up or something. It's a little bit different for different devices and platforms for folks on their own computers and such.
Hi, Nancy. This is Mike Rockers from Clinton County. I had the join breakout room on the bottom of my screen, and when I went to tap on it, it disappeared.
Well, I'll tell you what, I think that if you see that, you might have to move your windows around. But if you see the window, you might have to scroll down and see which county. But I can also perhaps make you go into one, and then you might see like a join button that goes up. So which county are you trying to join?
I'm with Clinton County.
Okay, let's see. All right, you might see a window pop up there where you have to push join or something. Do you see that? And the silence is a good sign. It means he's already left the room. So yeah. So
Hi, Nancy. I'm with Crawford County, and I'm using my cell phone for the Zoom meeting and unable to get into my chat group.
Sure. Crawford, you say?
Yes.
There you go.
Thank you.
And, of course. And
I'm Ron Kindred. I'm on a cell phone as well, and I'm with Logan County, so I need help.
And there you go, Ron. And I see the message from Vicky asking to go between Logan and Macon, and I am pretty sure that's
okay. Can you
easy
hear?
to do.
Hold on. So we're kind of working through things, and can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So am I in the Cumberland group?
This is Sarah. Am I talking to Sarah right now?
No, you were talking to Vicky. Okay, hold on. Here.
Oh, she's done.
Yep, there you go.
Okay.
And I think the only one left is Patrick and Bruce. Oh, no, it's Patrick, Bruce, and Ann. And do I need to assist any of you? They could be just joining.
Yeah, they might be in a meeting room on their devices.
This is Bruce. I need to find Perry meeting room.
Okay. There you go. And then sometimes I look back in my roster to see where the others might go, because some folks have an issue with just even unmuting. And so, you know, it's either. Okay, so Anne, I'm seeing that you're from Clinton County, and so I'm just going to throw you in there and hope you can swim.
This is Anne.
Okay. And you might see a window now where you can just join. And there you go. So, and then let's see about you, Patrick. I don't have you on my list. Patrick Waller. I don't have you on my list for this broadband session, but I might have you on my general list.
I'm going to buzz around, Nancy.
Okay.
Todd, thanks for joining today. And I assume you'll be jumping off to go do some work. And John Kostelnick, you're welcome to join in and as long as you want or head for your work schedule. Hi, Jessica.
Hi, I'm popping around to the folks in the regions that I'll be helping. So I'm looking at my little map here to see what counties are in my region. How are you today, Bill?
I'm great, thank you.
Good,
Good to
good.
see you.
Yeah, nice to see you as well.
Thanks for being here, Jessica. And I'll mention that we've got, you know, the ISP and LFA fellows joining us, and that's great to have you all on. So thank you.
Yeah, we're so happy to be here. And what I might do too, Nancy, is if you want to drop our emails in the follow-up email, and that way for those of the folks that don't already have it, that they can get our emails as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, Patrick, I'm seeing that you are actually not in any of the counties, but welcome, and don't know if you would like to unmute and greet. Bill, I'm not seeing that Patrick is in any of the counties, but it looks like he is with I see an Illinois.gov email address, but he's
We'll try and
not
find out who he is later.
Yeah, and that's fine.
Yeah.
Patrick, it'll be nice to meet you whenever you unmute. It's possible you've signed on and then maybe you're doing transcription or something. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, he could be from DCO or something.
You never know. A lurker.
It's it'll be
There's a info that he's on the community college board in Springfield, so he might be representing.
yeah, and maybe with one of the counties, and maybe having some technical difficulty, and we're happy to have a conversation with you and see what exactly you can bring to our team.
So Nancy, I will say goodbye now.
Yes, and safe travels, Mike. Thanks for joining to just do the greetings and such, and hopefully see you next week. as well, and thanks for all you're doing. I think I'll be CCing you. I will need to send out a few emails signaling to the county directors that these sessions have started with their counties, so that they know that that's happening,
Good point.
and explain to them what Extension's role is.
Yeah, did we have that? Did we send that out in the previous cohort?
Yes, and I believe there was also just like a general announcement that Anne made, maybe through the FYI, that monthly internal newsletter, but this is the way I have to mind my P's and Q's, is, you know, I'm virtually stepping into your county, and I just want you to know. So they like to know. Though, Bill, I will say that our county offices, most of them don't have a community and economic development person. And so whenever any of us, you know, do any assistance in those counties, they're pretty happy about it because they don't necessarily have somebody. So,
Okay.
Yeah. So it's always good when these things get kicked off for them to realize it. And I don't think that there will be any extra extension person that will show interest in joining in to assist the local, like, networking or distribution. But if there are, I'll be happy to, you know, talk to you about that when we get to it, if it happens.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, then, enjoy, and talk to you both soon.
See you, Mike.
See ya.
Bye, Mike. Thank you.
So it's just looking at our prospects for the next cohort. And so Vermilion has applied now. They're the first one to apply.
That's great. I know that they have wanted to do that for some time, so that's wonderful.
And then we have Lawrence and Coles County that said they're going to apply. And then we've got that whole One Shawnee group that I'm not sure if I know they did some promotion of that, but
Yes, I followed up, let's see, with Nicholas Mott. I sent him an email right before the holidays. I think it was like that 22nd, it was a Friday. And I just said, are you seeing that any counties are going to be applying for this? It's just a one-liner. And he wrote back and he said he had not heard anything. But then Patrick wrote back and he said that he was ushering a few that were thinking that they would.
Okay.
So I wrote back and just said, hey, you know, early January versus late January would be, I think, a good thing to try for, as far as getting applications in.
Yeah, because I would like to know if, you know, how hard a push we have to do. Right. So if there's people saying, hey, we just have to do the paperwork, we're all set, then we can kind of, you know, semi-confirm them. I think Coles and Lawrence fit that category. And but then, you know, so that's 3, and then we would need, you know, ideally 3 more. So
Okay, that would be, I think, good news for them, because I think they're worried that they're not going to get in before others get in or something.
Yeah, well, there's one solution to that, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah, I hope that that can get moving. I think as long as there's at least one in that larger, you know, the 4-county and 5-county group there, that 9-county group, if there's even just one that can get in, then they would be able to show the movement and what it looks like.
Mm-hmm.
And so then you've got, you know, maybe hopefully people paying attention. It'd be great if, like, they could all get out, they could all get together. You know, the population density is so much lower that I don't know if they'll be that ambitious to say, okay, our 4-county group or our 5-county group is going to do this together. I don't know that, but I wonder if if they are hoping to do that, that would honestly be, I understand that that could take more effort, but I think down there around those parts, that networking and kind of leaning on each other is already going on for various other reasons. In terms of servicing low income populations together, there's organizations that are real familiar with each other, and I would hope that they are part of some sort of team building around this and could get folks rolling.
And at least they'd really increase their capacity to act on the issue. Although since we're still waiting for like round 3 grant announcements, I thought those were going to come before Christmas, or the pace of Illinois sometimes is slow, but the window for really having an opportunity to impact what happens in your county is going to close up pretty rapidly once they send out the NOFOs for these dollars.
Yeah, important.
I've kind of got a very time limited product here, which is just fine for me with my retirement timeline. But to think you're going to do broadband planning a year from now is going to be wrong.
Yes, I tried to imply as much in that last email with those Southern Illinois folks that, hey, early January versus late January might make a difference between 2024 and 2025 in terms of readiness. And then that makes a kind of like a bit of a financial difference. And I didn't say that. I didn't say any more than that, but I maybe should have said, gosh, and the difference between 2024 and 2025 could be decades of financial, a decade of a financial impact, so.
Yeah. Well, I just think the money's going to be spent in some form or fashion, but the community's ability to impact it and who's the provider and the quality of service is going to be, the community ability to impact that is going to really diminish in relatively short period of time, I think. So yeah, it's almost now or never on the community involvement. This whole thing is going to be so interesting. There's so much plan, for the BEAD dollars. There's been so much kind of state level planning and the mapping, and who knows what's going on behind the scenes with Comcast or CenturyLink or Frontier and what their corporate plans are for this money. And we would, communities would never know. And then it'll just be announced essentially. That's my anticipation.
Will we have Doug back on one of our calls this?
We will, yes.
Okay. He's always got great insight.
Yeah, yep. So how many days a week do your boys play basketball? Are they on the same team or are they on different teams?
This time, I just have the older boy who plays on a team, and he's in 7th grade, but they've moved him up to 8th grade for playing a lot of the time, which is kind of exciting. And of course, he gets better and better, and that's fun to watch. But it's still middle school boys playing basketball, so there's still some funny things going on sometimes, but it's a nice it's a nice thing to do. And usually it's only 1 to 2 games per week. But there was 1 week, I think it was in December, where there were, I think it was 3 games, and I just thought I was gonna, I don't know. I was done. I said I there's for various reasons, the
Sure.
younger one has other activities, and then of course, as a mother, you have these other sort of benchmarks of like bedtime. That's a pretty basic one. So, it's I one evening I think practice went over and I just walked in. I said, I'm picking him up now. It's time to go. And the coach just looks at me and I looked right back at him. I said, no, I'm actually the boss in this scenario. It's bedtime. So
Well, yeah.
and of course my older son was like, oh, really? And I'm like, yeah, really. So
Well, no, that's the amount of, and I was on swim team, so we practiced before school and after school, and the amount of time and energy that went into that was really amazing. So
yeah,
well,
it looks like
coming back here in 2 minutes, huh? That's good.
Yep, it looks like the time has flown by and those rooms are closing in 45 seconds, and I think some others are already stepping back in. So welcome
Good.
back.
I've got too many windows open here.
Okay, and the breakout rooms are closed and we're all back in. I'm going to go ahead and mute, and Bill, let me know if you need anything.
Good. And Reed's getting his screen going here. So we're going to go through a program overview. And I know some of you have seen this presentation now several times, but I know we have a lot of new folks involved and we want to bring everyone up to speed on kind of what you've signed up for. This is, it's the old joke about whether you're the prospect or whether you're the existing customer. So, and that certainly applies to broadband sales approaches where people get 90-day or 6-month deals and then find out what they've really signed up for. And so that we're going to go through the program overview, and then we're going to do a broadband 101. And so today we're doing a lot of talking at you, and know that most weeks it'll be the first hour will be us presenting to you and discussion in the large group, and then the second hour is going to be your team discussions, of which we'll have assignments and discussion guides and worksheets for you to use to guide your discussion, talking about existing providers or existing services or your community vision for broadband. And so, but today is a little different in that I'll be doing a lot of the talking here to begin with, and then we'll close out at about 10:15 for your group to get together and then just plan your work. What's the logistics? How are you going to communicate back and forth with email? I know some people are possibly going to be using some project management kind of software programs like Teams or others to store your documents, or Google Drive, and give your team a chance to do that. I heard some discussion from some of the teams about a reliance on using the recordings for keeping people up to date. And that certainly is good for the content that we deliver to you. But I think it's really important that your teams get together. We plan this out so you have the first hour, like I said, of content to you. The second hour is for your team to work. And so if your teams are going to be viewing the meetings at different times, the ability to have those good discussions might be diminished a little bit. We've had teams that just met with us for the first hour and then had a evening meeting for the second hour where they would actually do their team work. And so if you're going to do that, that's fine, but know that that's one more logistical consideration for you to think about how to make your team work the very best it can. So let's get to the program overview. Next slide. Here's really our purpose, is to help you come up with the best possible broadband solution for your community. With this $1 billion of money that's coming towards Illinois, they're going to spend that money over the next 12 months. Illinois has to come up with their final plan as to how they're going to spend their dollars, which actually means this isn't a theoretical exercise. This is determining which grantees will get which dollars to serve which addresses. And so the fact that you're working on this right now is really timely, because this is when, you know, the state is preparing to issue what they call a NOFO, Notice of Funds Opportunity. And you want to make sure that you've got the right provider with the right technology with a grant application that you're prepared to support. You don't want to be sitting there at a county board meeting and a provider walks in and says, well, here's our grant application. Here's what we're proposing to the state. Please give us a letter of support. This is a much more proactive approach that you're taking right now to really work together with one or more providers to make sure, again, that you get the technology you want. You want the provider, you're selecting the provider you want. So that's really what this is all about. Next. This is a guided self-help 4-month program. And so you'll create your own plan. We're here to help you, whether it's myself or Reed on the planning side of it, Nancy on the surveys. But this is really something that we help you do. So at the end of the program, you have a plan that your team really supports, and you can then engender the support of county boards and school boards and local mayors and so on to make this happen. So we help you every step of the process, and we're ready to do that. Next. Here's the phases. Leadership recruitment and education really goes through the entire process. Information gathering, primarily that's the surveys, that's the provider interviews, it's the looking at the maps to find out, you know, what is our current situation, what are our best options for moving forward. The vision development, consensus building, that's really how your team works, and should recognize that as your team is forming now, you know, you may have different ideas about what is the right solution for your county. And so working through these discussions, having them up front, that's why it's so important to get as many stakeholders, key stakeholders involved early, as opposed to bringing people on at the end and having new points of views or objections emerge there. The opportunity analysis is really deciding which providers are our best bet for broadband deployment. The reporting is to us when you do your kind of your mock or your practice presentation to all the other communities at the end of this program, but then to really report out to your own community, to your mayors and county board and to your legislators about what it is that you see as your best plan. And then that project development, we've seen in past years where communities struggled to implement. Sometimes it happens right away, sometimes it takes a lot longer, but with this compressed time frame and this funding, this project development phase, I think is going to be much shorter than it has been in the past. Next. In terms of leadership recruitment, we've talked about this, bigger is better, 12 to 15 is great. That variety of knowledge and skills, you don't have to all be technologists. but that community connections is really an important part of that. And then again, to go through this whole process as a team, I won't underestimate the value of these discussions that you're going to have on a weekly basis, and the ability of your teams to share your different expertise, areas of expertise with each other. How does broadband come to the schools? How does the hospital use technology, and how does they get their connectivity? What's going on in one part of the county as opposed to a different part of the county? All that is really, really powerful experience that time and time again, when we ask communities about the program after they've completed it, and we do check-ins several months after you're done, that's been really the value that people say is the highest value for them. We'll always have resources available to you each week on the topic, so we'll email those out in advance, and you'll be able to get better prepared to really listen to the national experts that we bring to the table now. Next. I mentioned the surveys. That includes that. This is what Nancy really will talk about next week. The community survey, getting that out and launched is in a timely basis is important. A lot of times we've seen people have focus groups, farmers or business community, so on, to talk about broadband. We'll be coming on the ground to Illinois February 12th to 16th. So we'll look at the map, and we'll look at the calendar, and block out at least a half a day in each community for us to meet you in person, and to meet your team, and add whatever value we can. We've had summits or tours or community open houses, all kinds of different events, and we'll work with you to plan that as we go. But that's not so far away. That's about 5 weeks away. Provider interviews, existing and prospective, and then all the mapping we've talked about. And we've got not only the Illinois state maps, but the state broadband maps. And we'll be presenting on those in week 3, that you'll be able to see what the state thinks you have for broadband. And we've talked about the challenge process for the federal funding, and which areas are going to be available or eligible. And so we'll go through all of that and give you a lot of expertise. Shabika Agarwal is from our team. You'll meet her next week, and she's really Illinois' best expert on that. If you don't have a GIS person on your team from your county or regional planning group, I suggest you try and go recruit them, because that more and more this broadband planning is about the maps. Next. This vision development and consensus. Sometimes these are hard conversations, and so we want to make sure your second hour and over coffee and maybe some other beverages, really getting out and talking with people about what's good enough, who's the provider, and so on. We ask you to create a vision statement, and we talk about the importance of the words that are in that. So when that vision is really a measurement about which all your broadband proposals are measured. And so you want to make sure it's one thing to say, hey, we want the best, cheapest, fastest, most reliable, and what each of those words in those statements means, including some possible trade-offs. Next. The opportunities, providers, funding programs, getting yourself ready to be a good provider or partner is really an important part of this. And a good provider partner knows what they expect. They know what they're prepared to bring to the table. And so as a county, that's an important part of this, to say, hey, when we were trying to recruit a broadband provider, just like in economic development, when you're trying to recruit a manufacturing facility, what are you prepared to do as a part of that partnership? That's important. And then if you can't reach all of your goals, what's your plan B? And so that's important to think about as well. Next. And then the report. We talk about the report at the end, but I think it's really we've seen the value of people reporting on the process throughout the process, talking to people about the community survey and the results of the survey, talking about the as much as they can. You maybe not want to broadcast your results, your provider interviews, but really just being out in front, presenting to the county board on a monthly basis to let them know kind of your progress and so on, to bring people along through that program. Next. And then project development. Traditionally, it's been some of all of these things in communities, but I think again with this funding coming through, it's gonna we're gonna look back and say, man, that when the funding decisions are made, we're gonna say, oh, that took a long time. And the state and the federal governments have been planning this infrastructure money now for a couple of years. The states are kind of in the closing phases of their overall plans, with these grant opportunities going to be coming out here soon. So we want to make sure that you're ready to be an effective part of that. Next. Here's our weekly calendar. Today, Broadband 101 and the program overviews, then the surveys next week, and then the mapping and provider interviews will hit the following week. Then we ask you to really start thinking about those vision, goals, and outcomes that you want for your community, kind of a communication strategy, coalition building strategy. Then we start to get more detailed, the fiber optic, more information about fiber optics, middle mile networks. Then we have our week of tours onto the wireless technologies, ownership partnership models, feasibility studies, federal and state financing. We've got a special couple weeks of agriculture and broadband, a real focus on that. And then best practices in project development session there, where you'll find out about communities that have really had positive impact on broadband development in their communities. We take a couple weeks then to create your plan. I'll meet with you once or twice for up to 2 hours per session, depending on your appetite for that. And then here we are in mid-April with your community presentations. So it comes fast and furious. I've told people that if you're not kind of confused and overwhelmed about halfway through, you're not really working hard enough on this. And so that will be, expect some fatigue and brain fog as a result of this, with so much coming at you. But it all kind of settles down and becomes clear as we go through those final weeks. Next. So that's it for the process. Are there any questions that people have? Either you can share those in the chat, or you can just unmute and ask a question.
This is Doug from Perry County.
Hi, Doug.
When we get into the mapping stuff, are the data sets that you guys will be presenting, will those be made available for those of us that may do some GIS work for the county to add to our layers?
Yeah. Yeah, and so we'll show you, and Shabika is our expert, and she can show you how to download right from the state website the data sets for your county. You'll be able to import those into your own GIS systems. Shabika is also expert at helping people, if people are just trying to use like Google Maps and so on, how to make the most effective use of those mapping tools. And then the ISU information is also available directly to you. Good, great question. And I think that, you know, it wasn't so long ago before a lot of the money that's been out there for the last several years from state funds or from different federal programs, people could look across wide swaths of the county and say, well, that whole township or multiple townships are eligible for funding. That's become less the case now, as whether it's through the what they call the RDOF program or the ACAM program, there's all kinds of different federal programs, plus the state of Illinois broadband dollars, where pockets of areas have been funded. And so you really need to get specific with the maps about what is eligible and what isn't. Any other questions? Good, thanks. And remember, I know that people say, well, there are no dumb questions, but this is a lot of information, and we'd like to have a culture in our teams here of people ready to chime in and ask questions, really at any time throughout this program. So don't, if people don't talk early, then maybe they don't talk at all. So let's show courage and use that unmute button and participate as you feel the need and desire. Good. So I mentioned in the calendar that we will be talking in depth about fiber and wireless technologies later in the program, but we like to give people kind of an overview of Broadband 101 to help you not only understand some of the technology, but maybe some of the policy things that have brought us to this point, and so that people have a better understanding of what they have now and what the strengths or weaknesses of that technology are, and how to overcome that moving forward. So we'll spend some time here now going through this. And again, raise your hand or get in the chat, and I'm sure Nancy or Reed will interrupt me if they see stuff in the chat that they want me to address. So thank you for that. When we think about how good is your broadband, a lot of people think primarily about the download speed. Traditionally, they say, I have 5 meg or 10 meg or 100 meg or a gigabit of service. But it's only one of several factors that really are important to think about in terms of the quality of your broadband connection. So download speed is there in the orange, and upload speed is becoming more and more important as we think about the need to have interactive applications, people working from home and connecting into corporate networks, farmers who are uploading data files to their agronomists, people who are doing telemedicine and having to upload things from their computers if you're a doctor to your work environment. And then even a meeting like this, when you start to get 30, 40 people on a Zoom call, there's a lot of video that's going up and down to your computer. And so those upload speeds are becoming quite important. Just yesterday, I was working with somebody in Missouri, and they're sitting in she said, the 5th largest city in Missouri, and was having trouble with her upload on her video where she had to turn her camera off. And so this upload speed is gotten to be, I won't say equally important, because we still consume much more data than we generate, but the upload is important. And then there's always the people who are kind of using things differently, where most of us might be watching Netflix. They might be generating, they might be a photographer taking 1,000 wedding pictures over a weekend. And each one of those files might be 10 megabits or higher. And they're uploading information to their customers. And they've got to be able to do that. So again, upload speed is really important. On the technical side, latency is something that's the delay between the time you hit send and the time somebody receives that. And that delay is important for many applications, for banking, again, for logging into a corporate wide area network. We know that satellite technology, especially traditional satellite, has much higher latency, much greater delay, where it becomes almost like talking on a satellite or on a two-way radio. And that becomes a challenge for a lot of popular uses and so on. So latency is important. Fiber network may have latency as low as 6 milliseconds, where a traditional satellite connection might be up to a second or 1,000 milliseconds. So that can be a real challenge on for different types of connections. We know that reliability is really important. If you're working from home and you only get paid when you work, that's a challenge for people who have unreliable service. The more we start to use the technology, incorporate it into our daily lives, the more we really rely on it to be there when you need it. And so that reliability is important. We know that in some rural communities, trying to use DSL service or fixed wireless, the service is so unreliable that it becomes, the customer gets on a first name basis with the provider's technical staff, and that's never a good thing. And then affordability, we've really seen the emergence of this as a critical piece. I think we've always had that issue where people can decide or not to have broadband based on their financial circumstances. And we know that the people less likely to subscribe to broadband services are people who are both older and poorer. And so knowing now, and I think the pandemic exposed us more than anything, tremendous number of school kids didn't have home broadband. And the people who are involved in schools and libraries certainly saw that when schools were open, that kids were staying after school to use technologies. They're rushing over to the library. And that was both a matter of affordability and availability. But to have everyone be connected to the network, that's how we get the most value from the network, is having everyone connected. So affordability has really emerged as a part of this. We don't do a lot of what would generally be considered digital inclusion work in this program, worried about affordability and people having devices and the skills to make use of the network. But know that that's an important part of building the marketplace for broadband in your community. And affordability is a big part of that three-legged digital inclusion stool. And then finally, mobility. It's not a question of wireless service or wired service. We know that people want to be connected wherever they go. Parents wanting to be connected to their kids at all times, people in business wanting to be able to take orders, do customer service on the go as they travel from place to place. And certainly that mobility is a key part of broadband services now. I see a question here. It's I'll answer it. What pay rate is used per hour to track donated time? Vicki, since we don't have a there's no grant program or anything required to track in-kind service. We don't really, hasn't been a part of our monitoring. So you and I can talk more about that later, but if you're trying to match some other grants here locally, you might check directly with the funders on what they traditionally have. When we think about broadband, the rural challenges, which you all know, the low population density is the number one thing. It's generally, traditionally, providers have told me that if there is about 8 houses per road mile, they can make a financial go of that. But a cable company, traditionally, they want 20 or more houses per road mile, really almost urban densities to extend their broadband service. And so that density is certainly an important part of this. We know that if you're in a county in Minnesota, there's Rock County, and they're well known for their very poor environment for plowing fiber optics into the ground. That could really change your dynamics of where you're trying to put fiber in the ground and so on. competitive grant processes, these applications that the providers put in, and traditionally they are the ones who put the grant applications in. That's a real challenge for them. They don't have the skills to write the grants. They're not used to federal rules and regulations around grants. And so that getting the expertise, whether that's your own county or whether that's your regional planning agency or a private grant writer, those are some skills that you might want to think about. We know that in many cases, incumbent providers aren't really interested in providing service to your area, but they're not really interested in seeing other providers come in and deliver service either. They want to kind of protect their marketplace and not interested in new providers. The broadband maps, they've gotten considerably better, but I know the more we look at them, the more detailed they try and get, the more questions emerge from maps. And we'll hear more about that in a couple weeks. And then, as I mentioned, the digital equity considerations, and especially in rural areas, the poverty sometimes can be more hidden. It's more spread out. There's fewer organizations, nonprofits devoted to working on digital equity in your community. Next. Here's some the Illinois broadband maps, and we're going to go through these kind of quickly for each county. Red is bad in this situation. Red means stop. And so these are the areas you can see that are areas in cream color there have at least 100 down and 20 up. And the areas not in the red have less than that. Next. And so
now,
you can,
it's a little different in these now. The dots are areas with those speeds. Just
okay, thanks, Reed. And so you can see here the contrast of Clinton County, and you can see generally where they have the 100 by 20 megabit category, that's usually a cable modem. So the areas with those areas have cable service, or it might be a fiber connection from an electric co-op or an existing locally owned rural telephone company and so on. And so you can kind of contrast with each of your counties, kind of see where the 25.3, that might be served with a DSL service. And you can see the considerable differences between the maps. And we'll spend a lot of time in the next couple of weeks preparing and providing you with maps that show higher levels of detail as well. Next. In Crawford County, similar picture. You can see on the right, there's a lot more of that DSL service out in the countryside, especially in that northeast part of the county and so on. But you can start to look at these maps, and Illinois has a pretty relatively simple system for looking at this if you're not afraid to go in and click around, but we'll lead you right through that process here again in a couple weeks. Next. Similar circumstances here. And these now become these maps are more even address level maps. Is that correct, Reed? With these
Yeah,
dots?
I believe so. We'll have to ask some of the broadband lab folks and broadband office folks, but the hexagon layer seems that a lot of the states have moved to that, which I think, yeah, you're right, is more address focused.
Okay. They used to be by census block, and so which is a unit of geography. Census tract is a bigger area. Census block more detailed. But if one house in a census block was covered with service, then they would count the entire census block as being covered. And they've moved away from that approach now with the new FCC maps. And so these are a little different. Next. And next, just to give you a taste of what these maps show. And here you can see, Macon County 25.3 is in a lot of places, pretty widespread, but a huge drop off once you get to that 100 by 20. And the 100 by 20 is now considered kind of they haven't said it yet, but the FCC is definitely moving towards declaring that as kind of the minimum level of broadband service. Next. So you can see each of the counties faces a little different situations, and we'll work through that with you in mapping in the details to come. Next. So as I mentioned, we've got government standards, and then we really have the marketplace for broadband. And right now, the federal standard for broadband is 25 down and 3 up is considered unserved. Between 25.3 and 100 by 20 is underserved. And you can see the goals for Illinois, 100 by 20 by 2028, 25 by 3 everywhere by 2024, which is now this year. We've seen the marketplace for wireless really transform, where the providers are claiming very, very high speeds with fixed wireless. And in some cases, that is certainly the case. We've seen a huge push by the cellular providers into the home broadband marketplace with a 50 megabit connection and so on. One of the things about wireless we know is that you can cover, say, if you look at the Verizon map for your county of wireless services, they're going to say, oh, we provide great service everywhere. It's just a red color across the entire county or across the entire state. But we know that when we're driving around rural communities, that's not the case at all. And so depending, and that's true of the fixed wireless as well as cellular. So distance from towers, being behind structures, behind hills, in a forest, it's all a very, very variable from place to place within your counties. And then we know that people talk about Starlink. It certainly is a huge advancement, and I'm not going to underestimate the impact of that. But at the same time, it's quite expensive, and has been, from what I hear, slowing down considerably as people have added on customers to that service. One of the things about especially Starlink and the satellite service is it's not really considered infrastructure. It's almost like a supply, because about 20% of the Starlink satellites fall out of orbit every year. So it's something that they have to keep replenishing on an annual basis. And whereas if somebody comes in and puts up a tower or puts in fiber optics into the ground, that's really infrastructure that is place-based and is really a permanent investment. But what we've seen now in the wired marketplace is this gigabit service, symmetrical 1,000 megabit per second service. It's widely available by fiber optic providers. We're seeing 2 gigabit symmetrical service, 10 gigabit service available. And with fiber, with its virtually unlimited capacity, we're seeing these higher speeds being very commonplace. And I think they say up to 30% of the country now has symmetrical gigabit service available. If you're a cable customer, traditional cable company, the gigabit by 50 is kind of their standard. They because that coaxial cable has more limited capacity, they put most of their service, most of their capacity into the download capacity, much slower upload. Although there's 50 megabit per second is not a bad upload speed, and people can do a lot with that. We know that cable companies have really, I won't say abandoned their old technology, but in their greenfield developments, most cable companies are building fiber to the home. And then if you're a customer of somebody like Frontier or Consolidated, you're more likely to have this antiquated copper twisted pair phone network in place. And that's more likely to have much less than 25 megabits. It may have 10 down and 1 up, or 3 down and 1 up as this service that's available. And that just doesn't really work in today's marketplace or to meet people's needs. Next. And then a little more detail here, fiber to the home, this unlimited capacity, symmetrical service, up and down, high speed. And depending on your uses, if you're a farmer with huge ag databases, if you're a videographer, if you're collecting drone footage, if you're a wedding photographer, this need for symmetrical service is really increased. And especially we all use things like iCloud or Dropbox to store files in the cloud. That really benefits from symmetrical service. The fiber is really reliable. It's low cost to maintain, this long life, 30 to 50 years. People talk about future proof, that it is the infrastructure of the future, and know that fiber is used to connect wireless towers. And so even a wireless service is generally on fiber most of the time. And the big disadvantages, expensive to build, takes time to build. And so that every community is going to face this as we go through these discussions. You could have some wireless service up a year from now, where a fiber network might be a 2 or 3 year or longer process to get constructed. And so that timing thing is really a big consideration as communities go through this planning process. Next. Here I mentioned the DSL service. This is of an exchange up in Minnesota where I did a research project. When the federal government, the FCC provided money for something called the Connect America Fund 2 program, the standard was 10 down and 1 up. And we can just see that if you're within those little circles, the dots are DSL access modules, or the DSL electronics. You might get within 25.3 within that little circle, but everything else is, around 10 megabits per second. And you can see that DSL services have that big variability. And in most of the cases, the copper lines are very old and deliver very, very poor service. Next. Cable networks. Those are a combination of fiber to the node and then using the coaxial cable for the balance of that. The DOCSIS 3.1 is what can deliver that 1,000 by 50 service. They talked about a different technology that would do the 10 gigabit per second service, but we haven't really seen much of that. That was kind of a promise, and now we see this transition to all fiber by some of the cable companies. The non-symmetrical nature of the cable network is really the number one thing, as well as the cable companies are generally large, publicly traded companies, and they face the same issues of expanding into rural areas as the phone companies have with maintaining their rural networks. It's just not really profitable for them to do that. Next. Cell services, we've seen this now, technologies. We've finally fully implemented 4G service, and we can see that as of a year ago, the average mobile speed was 78 by 9. And then again, if you're close to a tower, those speeds will be considerably higher. Some distance from the provider, much lower. We've seen this home service that has really emerged as through cellular networks. One of the things that has improved is the amount of spectrum that's available to providers. The FCC has really opened up a lot of spectrum for them to use, and so their speeds have been able to be maintained. We hear all kinds of stories of people having to go outside, go up into stand on a rock or whatever to get cellular services out in their rural communities. We know that farmers, when they're relying on cell services out in their fields, that can be really variable and a real challenge for them to use. Next. The fixed wireless, we've seen a real push to fiber-fed towers, and they're pretty easy now to deliver 100 by 50. It's more reliable with the fiber, very quick to deploy, inexpensive to deploy, but it requires that line of sight because it's not powerful enough to power through trees and so on. And we know that there's also relatively high maintenance costs with fixed wireless services, that people are up there climbing towers, replacing equipment and so on. The life cycle of the wireless equipment is much shorter than the fiber equipment. And again, that distance is a real challenge. Next. We talk about traditional geostationary satellites where they remain directly overhead. Those are available everywhere, but I can't really say I've met a satisfied satellite customer. There's reliability issues, the price, the bandwidth caps, the low speeds, the weather impacts, all really pushed satellite service far back. They do have some improved services, I'd have to say, but not anywhere keeping up with either fixed wireless or the fiber connections. And next. The Starlink, the latency, because those satellites are so low, only several hundred miles up in space as opposed to 20,000 miles, that latency has been promised to fall to 20 milliseconds, which is actually very good. The bandwidth to be expected 100 to 200 megabits per second, which for people going from a old fixed wireless or a DSL connection to that is a huge improvement. It's available everywhere. But know that if you live in the woods in the forest, you need a pretty good view of the sky to have Starlink because their satellites are moving across the sky. Traditional satellite coverage, that satellite is in one place. So you need to cut a hole through the trees to get that connection. Starlink is better off on the prairie than it is in the woods. I believe these prices are current, which is high for a lot of people to pay, and the sign-up costs are quite high, and so that's a real challenge as well for Starlink. Next. So when we think about your broadband, and this is let's see here. Ooh, yeah, we're good on time. Just as we think about broadband breakthrough, what you might come up with at the end. This is fully implementable projects with your provider partners and likely financing plan. You know, that's kind of the gold standard. We've had communities be able to do that. Sometimes we have it's more conceptual plan, but with their providers identified. We've seen where communities come up with go through this planning process, and they haven't been really able to attract providers. They haven't been able to come up with a plan that is really that they find is feasible. And so they need to go, I won't say back to the drawing board, but they need to develop additional data that if they're trying to make the case that they're going to attract provider investment, communities really need to understand kind of that full business case about what a network would cost, who's going to put in what funds, what is the really shape of that public-private partnership that's going to be required to attract a broadband provider in, or the idea that a local government, a county government could actually become a broadband provider or own parts or all of the network, either operate it themselves as a utility or operate it in partnership with a provider where the public owns the network and the provider then leases that network and delivers services over it. And we'll go through later on in the program all the different models that people can adopt to make things happen in their community. And many of those have been quite successful. There's successful models for all of those kind of different approaches. And so those will be up to kind of your vision for what you see for your community. Some leaders say, hey, we want a public network. We want the benefits of that. For us to own this infrastructure long-term is a competitive advantage. And we'll talk more about why that would be the case for economic development, for government efficiency and government applications, equity kind of considerations, and so on. And so that's where you really require much more detailed cost estimates, income statements, and the financing plan. And then a community may decide, well, this is a big thing, or everything we've learned is kind of bad news. We're just going to wait for somebody else to come save us, and a decision to do nothing. And so those are kind of for the range of options that we've seen through the Breakthrough program. Next. So we've got this challenge process, and I'm going to let Reed talk, but we know that with the federal funds, they've created these new maps, and this has been a partnership of the FCC and the states really over the last year or so about creating these maps. But there's still a lot of concerns about the maps, and I've heard already some discussion about that. And so, Reed, you want to talk a little bit about the mapping and the challenge process? And then a member of our team, Shabika, who's not here today, in 2 weeks, she'll talk much more about this.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, Nancy can chime in if I get anything wrong as well, since she was involved in these challenge process webinars. But yeah, just quickly to kind of point your attention, since we've already heard some concerns about this. The state maps will be used, those maps that I showed earlier with all of your counties, those are going to be used to determine eligibility for the BEAD funding, which is that 1.04 billion that's set to come down into Illinois. And so to ensure that those maps are as accurate as they can be, the Broadband Lab is holding a challenge process in January. I think they've said 2 to 4 weeks starting in mid-January, so this month. Local government, nonprofits, and ISPs are the eligible organizations to submit challenges, while individuals can coordinate with those organizations if they want to make sure that their address, or they know of some addresses that need to be updated on the map. They can coordinate with one of those organizations that will be initiating a challenge. There's much more in-depth information about the process. The Broadband Lab and Illinois Extension did a really great webinar series last month that is linked in this slide, and we'll send that in the email after the meeting here. So if you're interested in learning more about the challenge process as it's starting in January this month, please ask us questions and go to that link there and find more about the challenge, because it's happening quickly, and they need to get that information to update the maps to be in a good position to deploy the federal funding.
I think you'll find that the providers are going to be really active in this challenge process. That is, if I'm a provider that's interested in going out and serving a rural unserved area, that the providers that want to build in those areas and want to get funding for it are looking at these maps very closely and prepared to do a lot of challenges. So partnering with your local prospective providers on this challenge process is recommended. I encourage you not to get too tied up in it, because God help us, hopefully these maps are fairly accurate, but your on-the-ground experiences will be much more valuable. Your perspective is more valuable on that than mine, certainly. And so, but it can be a time-consuming activity, and I'm not sure what benefits we'll see from the challenge process on the maps. But so be aware of it and maybe organize some folks or understand how this can really happen in your community. And but don't I think your time investment on the breakthrough program on the community planning is going to be of higher value than the challenge process. And so that's my own opinion. I guess I'm pretty biased about that, but I think it's important to keep an eye on it, but don't get consumed by it would be my recommendation.
Yeah, I'll echo
Yeah.
that. Sorry, go ahead, Nancy.
That's all right. It is one of those things. It's like, I think that is probably a good way to look at it, is just make sure that those T's are crossed, but then keep on trucking with the breakthrough program. I will just put in the chat the link to the training, which it's basically a train the trainer for someone in your county or community who will be able to assist the different units of local government, organizations, etc., to submit the challenges. So it's almost like a capacity building effort. And the trainings are today and tomorrow. They're being recorded. And then there's going to be another lunch and learn on the 12th. And this all just rolled out yesterday, but I'll give you those links already to make sure you've got those. And it's just some minimal, get a person who wants to attend those and then try to cross those T's. And I think then that will get you covered for the bead challenge.
Good. And we'll include those links in our follow-up email as well. So if you don't get them off the chat right now. So any questions? So we're kind of at the time where we've got about 15 minutes left for you guys to work in your breakout rooms on just anything that your team leader wants to share with the team about moving forward and process and procedure and new members and meeting times and all those things. As I noted, next time you'll have, will be more of a hour presentation and an hour for your team to meet and so on. So look forward to that. Any questions? Any brave souls out there?
No.
Okay. Well, and I'm going to reiterate that the next several weeks, a lot of this will be kind of the fire hose idea, that there's going to be a lot of information coming at you. You may not feel you're understanding all of it, but know that throughout this program, we circle around a lot. And so what we covered in, a little bit today, we'll cover more like the maps. We'll cover those in significant detail in a couple weeks. And the survey program will cover that in detail next week. But things about the survey now that you could think about is write up a little cover letter that you want from the survey. Think about who can help distribute the survey and so on. Nancy will cover that in detail next week with best practices and how best to work with her to make this happen. And so, but just as you always be thinking a week ahead, we usually do a email, probably come out to either later today or tomorrow for sure. And then we'll do another email early next week to kind of look forward to the next week. And so it's kind of touch base. Yes, sir.
This is Mike Rockers from Clinton County. I do have a question. Every week, do we get an individual link from Nancy?
So if you've registered, you should have already received a calendar invite that if you accept that invite, it will show up on your whatever calendar program you use to make that happen. If not, if you for some reason don't use a calendar like that, or you can just, today's link is the same for all 16 weeks.
Okay, because I missed that if I didn't see the link for making the calendar, so I didn't know if
Okay.
we would get an individual invite every week, or we
You
could
will
just.
not, no.
Okay,
And so you can look back and from an email from Nancy, maybe at the bottom of the email, that link is there, and you'll be able to click on that and populate your calendar.
okay, thank you.
Or if you email Nancy, she'll send you a fresh one, maybe.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Hi, Raisa.
Good morning. Hey, I have a quick question. First of all, I want to compliment you and your team. Great presentation today, very helpful to us, so thank you. My question revolves around the federal money that is available. Are there any match requirements, low to moderate income considerations that we need to take in consideration as we begin the process in our?
So the match requirements on the federal grants, I believe, are 25%. We haven't had and usually the provider puts that in. And so that is the kind of the standard approach, although there is sometimes a provider, if a community wants to put in some money, and it's kind of a checkbox, yes or no. If the community puts, let's say it's a $10 million project, that'd mean a $7.5 million grant. If the community, the county or whoever puts in money, whether that's ARPA dollars or general fund dollars, or let's say up even $100,000, that does give more points to the grant application. So I really encourage communities to think about what's a number that they can live with, that, if a county board puts in 100,000, said, that's a lot of money, but we leveraged $9.9 million with it. That's a pretty good return on investment. It also then gives the provider some comfort that, you're on their team and ready to work together, and especially if you can kind of hash that out in your planning process, right? Through the 16-week program about what you're ready to do. That's a nice thing to be able to offer to a provider to encourage them to, apply on your behalf. One of the things, there's, I would like to think that finding a broadband provider partner is kind of like if you went to a very small high school that maybe in your class you had 20 boys and only 10 girls. Finding that partner, there's definitely more boys than girls in that. And that's the same way with the best providers, that you want to find that best provider, and they're going to have a lot of opportunities to pick and choose where they want to build. And so I think it's important to let them know that you're going to be a good partner, and have them go through that process with you together. And the more certainty you can bring to that process, the better, because for a provider to apply for a grant, they have to do engineering and financial analysis. They have to do a lot of work on their side to apply for that grant. It's actually quite an expense of time and money. And so the more ready you're willing to, provide them with the survey data, show a financial commitment, maybe find a way to help them in other ways. And we'll talk more about this, whether it's right-of-way issues or permitting processes where you're ready to streamline that or lower the costs or help them with that. All those things can go into showing that you're a good partner for them. Kathy?
Bill, just a really quick question. You may do that later in the program, but I'm curious if there's a strategy that's both working on internet service and cellular service, because many of these geographies are not only challenged with broadband, they have really poor cell coverage.
Yes, so, and we'll talk about that. A lot of times the cell networks are connected to what's called middle mile networks. They're the networks that kind of go from town to town. And so it's when providers can get cell companies on their network, that's a huge revenue source. And so working with the middle mile provider or your local end provider to attract cell, determine cell locations, see where there's gaps of cell service. That's all part of the business case that makes an area more or less attractive. And so some of the mapping that Illinois State will do with us is identify tower locations, identify who owns those towers, identify some of the gaps. With the fixed wireless providers, we also identify farm structures that are suitable for fixed wireless networks. And so that would be, that's another asset that in the last cohort, providers said was really valuable. That we asked in the community survey if farmers, what's their tall structure and would they be willing to allow wireless equipment on there? We got big lists of locations and contact people who said yes, they would be willing to host that equipment. Usually they swap it for free internet service or something like that. And so that is a part of a smart strategy to try and address both wireless, cellular service and fiber optic service as you go forward. Thanks for that question, Kathy. So we're going to go, I'm sorry, as always, the clock is a challenge sometimes. We're going to go back into our breakout rooms, and you can meet for as short a time or as long as you want there. We'll keep the rooms open until everyone's out of them. And so usually we figure at least to go to 11 to keep the rooms open at the end of these meetings. So with that, I would thank you for your participation. Keep building your teams, keep talking broadband in your communities, and if you get in your room and you say, well, boy, I know everyone in this room, then maybe you should think about, well, who else that we don't know besides the usual suspects do we need to get into our onto our team? So thank you all, and feel free to reach out to Reed and I, and we'll see you next week. So Nancy, I think, is opening the rooms. Yep.
Thanks, Bill. Yep, those rooms are open. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording as well.